At this point, Super Mario Bros. Wonder has already been out for a decent amount of time, and because of that, players have started to get used to how the game truly works in and out, with the speedrun scene at this point leaning more towards general optimizations and figuring out the most optimal routes. With so much happening after the launch of the game, I've already made 2 separate videos detailing the rapidly evolving history of speedrunning the newest Mario title, but there's still so much more. There's already been a plethora of discovered skips, routes, and general tech, but that doesn't mean the game has calmed down at all. So many people are tearing this game further apart every single day, with many looking to be a part of the quest to beat the game as quickly as possible. I have so much more to share, so today, let's pick up where I left off and continue the journey of Super Mario Bros. Wonder Any%, as well as everything else relating to the game. In the last part, we wrapped things up on November 17th, with Jhay achieving a 1:27:22. At this point, the run had a plethora of new skips added between Worlds 5 and 6, as well as the hub world Petal Isles. Something I glossed over last time that I wanted to address now is the fact that this run had a slight change in route, with Jhay clearing half of World 4 before then warping back to Petal Isles and entering World 5. He then clears the rest of the remaining world after finishing World 6. Oh, and one more thing, Jhay switched back to English mainly for the level Tally's Toxic Pond, which now featured a quiz in the route, with him wanting to make this easier to read and get through. Okay, now that that is said, let's move forward. Jhay continued to optimize the same route and pushed forward immediately the next day on the 18th. He sadly did make some mistakes, such as accidentally losing his bubble in Tally's Toxic Pond and having to restart, but fortunately he was able to pull back ahead of this due to the fact that he previously messed up by getting hit twice in Muncher Fields. This had led to additional time loss due to not having a bubble power up for a bit. Additionally, he moved past his silly death in the grappling challenge seen previously, and with tiny optimizations spread throughout the last couple worlds, was able to pull over a minute ahead. When finally approaching Bowser, he had accumulated so much time saved that this time he finished with a 1:26:17, a 65-second improvement. You may recall that at this point, Jay's main rival off and on now has been Tsuake, with him being the only other person to trade the record back and forth after the initial craze of world skips being a thing. When he last had the record of 1:27:52, he was still doing things a bit differently from Jhay, but by this point he had caught up. He was doing the same idea as his rival, with him also now splitting World 4 in half, except his route was still a bit different. He actually cleaned up way more of World 4 the first sweep around, with him having to do way less after World 6. This makes it a bit harder to compare when just directly looking at times, but when clearing the World 4 palace, he was a clear 17 to 18 seconds ahead of Jhay. And hey, look at that, he finished the run on the exact same pace, beating Jay's record by 18 seconds with a 1:25:59. This run still wasn't perfect, with there being minor things sprinkled throughout, such as a really close call in the level pull turn burn. The first major mistake of all by far was missing first try World 1 skip, with him losing 40 seconds and then having to pull back thanks to cleaner gameplay. But hey, Tsuake was still able to improve upon Jay's mistakes so much that he just barely achieved a new minute barrier while doing this, 1:25. Wait, a new update? Version 1.0.1. Uh-oh. Yeah, we gotta talk about this. On the 20th, players were starting to be greeted with a software update for the game, version 1.0.1. This was a thing that many speedrunners were speculating and dreading since day one. In modern times, games notably tend to get updates not too long after a game is released. Sometimes these updates are more than needed and lead to a way better gameplay experience, but sometimes that's not always 100% the case. Looking at the patch notes, the 2 first notable tweaks are regarding points and staff credits, but the last simply says, general updates to improve upon the game experience. And let's be honest, we know what this means. People quickly learned that this actually meant patching out of bounds glitches that were already heavily being abused in speedruns. Fortunately, a majority of speedrunners, myself included, were prepared for this and disabled automatic updates ahead of time. Since then, it has been found that a certain block clip is possible with the new update, but past that, version 1.0.1 has been deemed inferior, with it not being an option for proper any% runs utilizing the 2-player out of bounds glitch. Moving past Nintendo's attempt to try and fix the game, runners kept going forward and pursued with glitches anyways. With Jhay being dethroned once more, he was immediately on the hunt to climb back up top. Only 3 days later, he would pull out not 1, but 2 really great runs. The first was a ridiculously close attempt at getting back the record, getting a 1:26 flat, being only a second behind Tsuake. On the same day, his second finish attempt would rectify this. He was comparing against Tsuake's 1:25:59 for most of the run, and out of World 1, he was already a solid 50 50 seconds ahead thanks to Tsuake's previous struggles with the first world skip. While minor mistakes spread throughout would shorten this lead, he would eventually pull a full minute ahead thanks to a multitude of things, but most notably came from Poison Ruins. Tsuake in his 125 had lost his crucial bubble power-up, which forced him to restart the level and eat a ton of time loss. While Jhay may have been on the run of his life thanks to this, he unfortunately would eventually destroy the success by accidentally dying in wavy ride through the magma tube, which happened by jumping too high into the lava ceiling. Fortunately, with his previously major lead, he still had time to work with, and left World 6 with a possible mid-125 still in play. Unfortunately though, this lead would shrink more and more as the run continued on, with the most notable mistake being losing power-ups in High Voltage Gauntlet. All in all, he was still able to barely keep it together, which concluded in a 125.54, a slight 5-second improvement versus what could have been. Oh look, another piece of news. On the 24th, two new major things happened to the Super Mario Bros. Wonder leaderboards. 1. A new category was added, All Badges, and 2. Individual level leaderboards were added. So what is All Badges? Well, it requires you to get every single badge in the game. These different badges can be acquired by doing a multitude of things across the game, with All Badges pretty much being the 100% category, except excludes one specific thing, standees. In different areas of the game, you can purchase standees to collect for different amounts of coins, and with the picks you get being random, it can lead to you getting a ton of duplicates. This basically makes this part of the run RNG when trying to run 100%, so All Badges is the perfect solution to this and removes this annoying part of it. In fact, All Badges was already an unofficial category right from the game's beginning, with Sailo notably having a documented time just 3 days after release. Since then, he has lowered the record here by just over 50 minutes, with him getting it into the 4-hour and 50-minute range versus 100%, which is about a half an hour slower, with Sailo also having that. So we got that category out of the way, but what about individual level leaderboards? Well, the name does a lot of the talking. There are now leaderboards for beating every individual level in the game. Each level has any percent and 100% categories, with the first being to beat the level as quickly as possible in any way, and the second requiring you to collect the purple coins and wonder seeds. With the plethora of potential levels to submit to, and it being so new, while making this, the leaderboard is yet to be even properly filled out, so maybe next time we can talk about it once that site is properly updated and flourishing. Let's get back to runs. Fast forward another 4 days on the 28th, and you best bet Jay's competition was still right behind him. Tsuake was able to correct his previous wrong by nailing World 1 skip this time and getting a 50-second lead against his previous record. He was able to squeeze even more time save level by level, which allowed him to enter World 4 on a potential 124 pace. He continued to pick up further time, such as Blooms of the Desert, where he previously lost his bubble power-up, and not having any incidents in Poison Ruins this time. Thanks to all of this, he was 100 seconds ahead of his personal best after this. While he did notably have a brief struggle of bubbles in Pull Turn Burn, he kept it together and had his best ever ending, resulting in a completely decimating time of 124.23. This beat Jay's record by a minute and a half, 91 seconds to be exact here. With this major time cut of a run being set, this is the latest record as of scripting, and while this is a major feat, it's obviously not over. Tsuake's time save sprinkled throughout makes a 123 very promising, with the possibility of it going even further between better potential routing and skips, as well as overall level by level optimization. But hey, it's not over yet for today. There's still one more bit I haven't picked into yet, all royal seeds. Ah yes, our glitchless any percent friend has still been getting ripped apart bit by bit. Chris Speedruns, who I mentioned last time being one of the major faces for this category, has continued to nibble at this record one step at a time, with him the week after his 209.25 record stretching it even further. He not only snuck into the 208 range with a 208.52 on the 21st, with a solid half a minute improvement on the 26th, a 208.22. With that just about covers everything Super Mario Bros. Wonder speedrun related exactly where I left off. With another chapter closed here, what will happen next? At this point, it seems like the general community and the game overall are settling in, with things still constantly going on, but not always rapidly evolving as much as it once was in its first few weeks. That being said, every single run I mentioned today is far from dead. Within the upcoming days, weeks, and months, you'll see plenty of new breath into all these categories, whether it's the names I've already been repeatedly talking about, or completely new competition ready to make a name for themselves. Two things I'm very curious about is, 1. Is any percent settled for the most part at this point, or is there still more skips waiting to be found? The game is still very new, with half of the skips in this run still being very recently adopted across the board. 2. It'll be interesting to see what new categories may be added as time goes on. Maybe eventually there'll be more updates, and it makes sense to split the leaderboard in some other way. Or maybe there'll be other categories that simply become popular enough to be considered for the main leaderboard. There's also an empty category category extensions leaderboard that at some point will be used for more miscellaneous goals that players can agree on. I suspect you won't see that board come to life until the game settles a lot more, but hey, in the meantime, you can always glance into the Mario Wonder Speedrun Discord to see the huge wave of suggestions that tons of people have suggested for potential new speedrun categories. Anyways, that's enough blabbing from me. Until further developments, that's the continued news of the rapidly evolving scene of Mario Wonder speedrunning. Thanks for watching.